Thank you for watching this Last Mile Profits video. Why is Quadient going to Italy? Keep watching to find out more. Last Mile Profits is brought to you by Parcel Pending by Quadient. Gary, if I said to you, Quadient loves Italy, what do you think would be behind that sentence?
Well, probably the last year of my life working with the Quadient team to start the baby steps towards establishing a brand new open network of lockers in the beautiful country of Italy.
So tell us a little bit more, because obviously I've seen the available information that Quadient is going to follow up on the open network that they've already got in the UK, in France, and now going to do something in Italy. Can you share a little bit more detail with us?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's absolutely consistent with Quadient's strategy. So the Quadient stated strategy is to look at the top 10 e-commerce markets worldwide and look for opportunities for locker deployment in this open network model. So France and UK are right up the list in terms of that top 10, as are USA and Canada, incidentally, and Italy's on that list as well. Why do we think it's a good idea? Well, it's one of the least mature locker markets. There are locker players there. There are networks that have started out, but they're not the tens of thousands of lockers that we see in kind of Eastern Europe and the Baltics. It's in the low thousands. So our research has told us that, a bit like Kevin Costner in the Field of Dreams, if you build it, he will come. So we think there is definitely an opportunity for another player in the Italian market with this open network model, an agnostic locker network.
Although, as you mentioned, that there were a few players there. So I think Amazon was the first to kick off. InPost then did something with Posta, but then they parted ways. So InPost, I believe, are doing their own thing. Posta Italiana went with DHL, and I'm not really sure. Is BRT doing anything?
BRT are doing a bit on their own, but I think it's relatively fledgling at the moment. The most interesting one is Lockers Italia, because you would think that when Lockers Italia,
Being DHL and
DHL and Parcel Italiana, they announced this, I think, at the Leaders in Logistics event in Berlin at the sort of March of last year. And it was a big fanfare. We're going to do this joint venture, and it's going to be open to all the other carriers. Now, we've discussed before about if a post says, I'm going to open up my network to others, and I promise to play nicely and promise to share it. Well, the fact that the other carriers haven't signed up to Lockers Italian kind of tells you how carriers feel about that. Now, the appetite for a joint network is definitely there. We've signed GLS in a multi-year, high commitment contract with GLS. I've got a very proud partnership there. Incidentally, they're going to be doing some of their own lockers as well. So they absolutely buy into this, do some of your own and share another network where you can't go type model. So it's a great opportunity for Quadient to take everything they've learned in the UK into a brand new market.
did you look at all about sort of how to-door delivery works? Because I have to admit, as you know, I've got a place in Spain. And one of the reasons why, even with an imperfect network, what I mean by that is a lack of density still of machines, I will always choose a locker or Puto above home delivery, because it's an absolute nightmare. Is Italy similar, or is it a lot better than Spain?
It's always very careful to be polite. You know, the performance of Post Italiana and parcels is not as high as some of the other posts around the world, should we say. So probably the experience you have in Spain would be very similar in Italy. But as we've also discussed before, a lot of the volume that the open network attracts is drop off by consumer, not pick up by consumer. So whilst there might be
Returns.
yeah, there's a big e-commerce market. Whenever there's a big e-commerce market, there's a big returns market. You've got the consumer to consumer volume, the kind of the vintage and the similar of this world around there. So we're actually expecting a decent amount of volume to come from drop off. And our locker, as you know, is Dropbox and printer enabled to really feed into that demand.
Well, I have to say, if that's the case, then I can really see a big opportunity, because where home delivery is less than perfect, it makes the case for out of home even stronger. But tell us a bit more, because you got me interested about the machine itself. So you're going to use, is it going to be a classic machine, or is it going to be an off-grid machine? How's it going to work?
Yeah, so I think it'll be a combination. I think the first machine to go out will be powered, and the first lockers will be on the ground actually next month. So we've got locations already signed up, and we've got a pipeline of installations that we're building up now that will start just after peak. And then, as you saw, we announced the off-grid locker in Amsterdam at the Parcel and Post Expo, and that's going to be instrumental in installations in many parts of Italy. In these dense urban environments, getting power particularly in the sort of older infrastructure, historical type streets where it's harder to do that, are going to be absolutely important. Now, in terms of challenges, Italian regulation is kind of legendary. It's not quite like the UK where you can kind of plonk a machine down and see what happens afterwards. There's a huge amount of bureaucracy to weave our way through. So we've been quietly doing that in the background prior to announcing our launch there.
Well, look, I think this is one to watch. Maybe if we ask Chanel and the marketing team nicely, we might get a good photograph of one of these machines. I'm not sure if they're in situ yet, but at least the machines that will be there, so we can have that. But before we end this episode, I think it's quite timely because you're wearing your orange top. We have to share some news, I think, Gary, don't we?
Well, yeah, I mean, this will be probably the last run of these videos I do where I'm kind of speaking on behalf partly of Quadient. As you may be aware, I've been working for them as a contractor, as a consultant for the last few years, and that relationship will be coming to an end in December, and I'll be moving into a kind of a more independent phase of my career. If you like, well, phase is probably the wrong thing. Twilight, an independent twilight in my career as I reach a grand old age. But I've had 6 fantastic years with Quadient and remain a huge fan of everything they do. But I think it's time to spread my wings a little bit and see if I can help some other organizations in a slightly different way going forward.
But despite actually both you and I being in our twilight years, as it were, we'll continue to do Last Mile Profits. We'll continue to work with Quadient on those and looking forward to a lot more material covering the interesting things in the industry, thanks to Quadient.
It definitely won't change.